All right, everyone. Happy week 2. It's in the books, guys. It has been, and it was a pretty intense week this week. We had some interesting games. We had some nail biters. Had a couple of blowouts in a sense. I'm looking at week 3 over here. I'm going to go to week 2. You guys probably don't want me to predict all of the games for this upcoming week. A couple of blowouts and a couple of nail biters. So without further ado, I'm going to jump into what I tagged as the game of the week, which was between Brett and Steve, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood versus Team Flynn. And you know what? This one didn't disappoint. It was not only the game of the week, but it was also the closest game of the week, and actually came down to the final game of the week on Monday night, when you had Odell Beckham Jr. go off and do dirty things. So Layla's in here, my pup. She's my running mate here. So without further ado, let me jump in and talk a little bit about Brett and Steve. Brett, I think it's starting to become questionable that he's, he banked on Derek Carr this week after not starting a quarterback in the offensive position slot. He only got 9.7 points out of Derek Carr against Kansas City. Now, Kansas City we know has a suspect defense, but and we could have anticipated the Oakland Raiders going to be throwing the whole time, but they didn't really do a whole lot. He did get 10 points out of the Green Bay Packers defense, though, which was pretty solid. Austin Eckler leading the way. I mean, that guy doing dirty things out of, just a late round flyer, putting up 17.3 points, and then this team was led by Ezekiel Elliott with 20. Now, if you look at his bench, he had Aaron Jones on the bench, which left 23 points, and really could have been the difference maker in this when you factor it all out. Between if you would have slotted an Aaron Jones over an Austin Eckler or something like that. On the other side with Team Flynn, Odell Beckham Jr. leading the way with 26.1 points. A lot of that came on that one really long chunk of yards. Let me center my camera here a little bit more. So 26.1 points there. And that really was the difference maker. He was trailing heading into Monday night. And, him and Nick Chubb, if you would have told me last year that you were going to get 2 offensive players from Cleveland that were going to make a difference in your fantasy week on a Monday night, and it was, we wouldn't have believed you. But this week, Nick Chubb and ODB putting up big points. Nick Chubb had a great week, 15.8 points. Matty Ice, 23.1 points, a good bounce back from last year. Sitting on his bench, Jimmy Garoppolo had 22 points. Team Flynn, Steve has a pretty solid flex of quarterbacks there. And then Devin Singletary put up the 11.7 points on that. So game of the week didn't disappoint. 115.9 to 118.5. Just a really close matchup. 2 hard-fought teams. Team Flynn, Steve gets a big win to move to 1-1. Brett falls to 0-2, which we say how the mighty have fallen. He was a back-to-back champ, just a year removed from that, and off to a rough start here. So best of luck in week 3, and it's still early. I'm next going to move into a pretty interesting matchup that last week I talked about Jake versus Kyle, and how Jake was heavily favored in that, and the only thing that Kyle was left out of his projections was a defense. Well, guess which defense Kyle decides to slot in? The New England Patriots defense to the tune of 42 points, which really is the difference maker in all of this. Just completely annihilated this scoreboard 42 points against the Miami Dolphins. You know, he had a big game from Dalvin Cook and Julio Jones, 29.1 from Cook and 26.6 from Julio. You know, really just, I mean, I've not been high on Dalvin Cook, but this guy looks really good in this new offensive scheme. Looks to be healthy and putting in some work. So pretty intense stuff there. On the flip side for Jake, kind of another head scratch. He didn't have a bad game, won 16.3 points, but you know, you look at Russell Wilson with 26, Devontae Freeman disappointed with 6.4, James Conner and T.Y. Hilton both put up to 10.5. Conner may be out for a little bit of time. We'll have to wait and see how the injury reports shake out. But then Travis Kelce with 18.7 was kind of that next highest scorer. So, you know, just kind of unlucky. Went up against a team that went off. So, tough to see. So, final score on this one, guys, is 116.3 to 162.3. Kyle with the win, moving to 2-0 at top of the Moops. So that was, and Kyle led the way this week in scoring. So I know it was a pretty close matchup in the points for category after week one. Kyle, I think, is going to be significantly ahead of that one. So nice job, Kyle. Moving now into Andy versus Randy, the D's, if you would. Let's take a look here while this loads. It's going to be nice and slow. This may have been blowout of the week here. No, I think the last game was blowout of the week. But Randy, hey Layla, how's it going? Randy had a big game. You know, Dak Prescott, Sony Michel had a really good bounce back week after like 1 point something points last week. Put up 12.5, almost matched his projection. Dak Prescott doing great things down there in Dallas, 29.7 points at Washington. And then Mahomes, man, leading the way again, 37.6 points. The rest of Randy's team really didn't do much. Christian McCaffrey had a disappointing week at 5.3 points. To be able to overcome, you know, your number one running back having a dud week is pretty special. So Randy also made a big trade this week, just today. So he's going to be watching Cam Newton and I believe Melvin Gordon walk away from his team. Two guys that, you know, Cam Newton was on the bench last week with 13 points and Melvin Gordon obviously holding out. So he'll be getting some reinforcements in the way of Michael Thomas. And I think he's partnering with Allen Robinson too. So I could be mistaken. I don't have that trade right in front of me. So Andy, just, you know, you feel for a guy who just doesn't get a lot out of his running backs. You know, Alvin Kamara, unfortunately, didn't put up much of a better game than Christian McCaffrey at only 6 points. You know, you keep a guy like that to lead the way, and then David Johnson only put up 7.4 points. So when you're getting, you know, a combined 12 or 13 points out of your running backs, it's going to be tough sledding. So hard to overcome that. Kenny Golladay, you know, doing Kenny Golladay big, you know, BGB things up there in Detroit, 19.7 points, leading his team. And then, you know, getting 4.2 points out of Bob Woods. Surprisingly not doing so hot in that, you know, the LA Rams offense, you know, even though they put up 27 points against the Saints. So tough sledding there. On his bench, he left, you know, he had Mecole Hardman, you know, 13.1 points, and Peyton Barber, 14.9 points. But, you know, I don't think Andy had enough firepower to overcome what Randy put up. You know, when you're getting almost 70 points from your quarterbacks, you know, it's hard to compete against that. So Randy walks away, moves to 2-0 ahead of the Moores division with a score of 140.9 to 94.4. Andy moves to 1-1 in the Moores division. Moving on to Eric over Mike. This was an interesting game. Mike surprised a lot of people. I think his team is secretly, I mean, it's a sleeper. You know, I picked him to make the money. So, you know, I think Mitchell Trubisky, man, I bet Mike still. I'm gonna harp on this every week, man. Mike is absolutely regretting not keeping Dak Prescott. I will also say that I told Mike to keep Dak Prescott over Mitchell Trubisky, but he did not. He did not listen. So it's his fault, not mine. Saquon Barkley, just the only thing that New York has in any way, shape, or form in the way of offense. It'll be interesting to see how Saquon does moving forward with Eli being benched for whatever his name is, Eli Jr. They look exactly the same. So 21.5 out of Saquon, 24.7 out of Tom Brady. But at some point, Mike's going to have to probably get rid of O.J. Howard because after 1.5 points last week, he puts up a goose egg this week, and that's just not going to cut it in this league. Harrison Butker only put up 4 points as well. Just tough sledding all around. Derrick Henry had a decent game, but Mike's wide receivers didn't really do much to write home about. On the other side, Eric had a pretty solid game out of Josh Allen and Baker Mayfield. Baker came back in a big way after last week. And then he also had Kerryon Johnson put up almost 15 points. So pretty good numbers there. And then Chris Godwin, man, freaking, if that guy could get a high ankle sprain or something to take him out for a few weeks, I'm sure I would really appreciate that because Mike Evans is just not anything to be excited about in that offense. It's all Godwin right now. 20.1 points, just put up an absolute showing. So looking at the benches here, Mike sat Matt Breida, 15.2 points. Probably could have made the case to start him over Julian Edelman. I just don't think Edelman's going to get a ton of volume any longer in that offense with Antonio Brown up there. And then Joe Flacco, I think at this point, the quarterbacks from across the field from each other, Joe Flacco had 15.7 points, which he did throw a touchdown, but I didn't realize he had that good of a game. So, it's not a good score, but it is what it is. So looking down at Eric, he looks like he made pretty much all the right plays. Outside of Evan Ingram, I think Mark Andrews is like the number one tight end in football right now. Yeah, Andy, I'm stealing some of your content, so I appreciate you going before me. But he's going to walk away. Eric's going to walk away with a score of 126.1 to 109.3 over Mike. Both teams are 1-1, sitting in the Moops and the Moors division. It's not a terrible place to be, but inconsistencies all around. And then finally, I'm going to wrap this recap up with me against Brian. Man, I feel for Brian in this one because I had a lot go wrong, and this was really the who sucked worse, and unfortunately, Brian and we both sucked worse. I was number 3 at the bottom. I was number 8 in scoring. Brian was number 10 in scoring this week. So the only person in between us was Andy. I messaged Brian about 2 or 3 o'clock on Sunday. I said both of our teams are a freaking nightmare. We'll see how this shakes out. Brian good gamed me, and I promptly lost Drew Brees right after that. So that was fun. And so I said, you take that voodoo magic and you shove it, more or less. I said, hey, I was trying to be friendly, Brian, and you had to go and good game me. But in all fun and fairness, just kind of a rough showing for both of us. He lost Njoku to a concussion. I lost Breeze, obviously, to the ligament damage, and so I got negative 0.5 out of Breeze. He got 0 out of Njoku. Lamar Jackson carried my team this week with 32 points. God, man. Thank you, Andy, for telling me to take that guy. And then I finally got to see David Montgomery get his first touchdown of the year, which was kind of tough sledding, man. He had like 5 or 6 carries from the 1, and I'm like, the Bears are just trying to give this guy a touchdown. And luckily, I think that was more or less the difference maker. The rest of my team really didn't do much. Leonard Fournette carried, he only had 8 points out of this game, and Joe Mixon just fucking disappointing all season. So my predictions are not so hot right now. And Mike Evans, 61 yards, which is respectable, but the guy is just not producing, and it's frustrating the hell out of me. If anybody wants to trade for him, let me know. John Ross III sat on my bench with 21 points. On Brian's side of the football, Le'Veon Bell had 10.9 points. Philip Lindsay had 6.6. As I said, Njoku 0, and both of his quarterbacks failed to break the 20 mark. They were 15.1 for Stafford and 19.1 for Goff. Funny story, ESPN on Monday night had some glitch, and looked like Brian was, like, the difference maker was going to be the Le'Veon Bell fumble, but it ended up correcting his yardage. And so, at one point, towards the end of the game, it was like 94.2 to 95.7, and I was like, you're going to win this thing, and I was pissed. But, it ended up working out in my favor. I moved to 1-1, and Brian moves to 0-2 we're both in the Moops division. Final score 95.7 to 87.7. So tough sledding there for both of us. I don't feel good about my team, even though I got a win. It just doesn't feel like a win. I think Brian has brighter days ahead with Antonio Brown returning, DeAndre Hopkins. D-Hop only put up 4 points, and you gotta feel like he's gonna have bigger weeks. And so quarterback play is a little bit shaky, but I think Brian's got a solid team right now. My running backs just aren't producing. I seem to be cursed with that. So anyways, let's take a quick look at where we're at after 2 weeks. We have 2 undefeated teams. We have Kyle over in the Moops division at 2-0. We have Randy picking up where he left off in the Moors at 2-0. Randy hasn't lost a game. I'd have to go back and look. I mean, obviously he was undefeated last year, so he's at minimum 18 games straight right now, which is pretty spectacular if you ask me. So kudos to Randy on that. He's on a pretty mean streak. His team's putting up big numbers. There are 2 0-2 teams at Brett in the Moors and Brian in the Moops. And then you have the rest of us sitting in the middle of the pack at 1-1. So still anybody's game. Even Brian and Brett are still very much in this thing. Where we're at with points 4, that pot. Randy has now fallen to number 2. Kyle leads the way in a big way, 292.6 points. Randy's number 2 with 272.8. So Kyle's starting to open up a little bit of wiggle room there in any trade money. So, Kyle is currently, I think, $5 into the trade pot, so he may be able to just keep his own $5. So we'll have to see what happens there. So if we're going to just take a quick look into week 3 and the matchups ahead. I face off against Connor and company. That is Jake. Face off against Jake. I'm currently favored by like 1 point. It'll be a close matchup. We'll have to wait and see where that goes. I lost Drew Brees, and so I picked up Teddy Bridgewater, but recent reports say that he's going to be splitting carries with Taysom Hill, so can't really be starting that guy. I might have to start and roll out Andy Dalton, and my running back play, as we know, has been suspect, so we'll wait and see. But that currently separated by 1.5 points. Brian versus Andy. This is a pretty big spread here. Andy's got him projected to win by about 12 points right now. It'll be interesting. Brian's searching for his first win. Team Flynn is projected to win over Mike by 5 points. Kyle is projected to win over Eric by 11 points. And then Randy and Brett are going toe-to-toe. That game is separated by 6 points and is actually projected right now to be the highest scoring game of the week. I think I'm going to tag, let's see, who am I going to tag as game of the week? I'm going to tag Brett and Randy as game of the week. Those are going to be two high-scoring affairs. I'm actually going to predict as well Brett to win this game over Randy. Randy's got a really solid team, but I do think Brett, is gonna, he's due, and Randy's due for a loss. So I'm gonna tag Randy to lose, Brett to win, and this is mostly because Randy traded Melvin Gordon for much less than I was offering for him, but that's neither here nor there. So, I hope everybody has a good week. I know, go take a look at Eric's power rankings that he published yesterday. This is the Facebook Live video. I'm hoping I can download this and get it up to YouTube as well so Brett can watch it. If not, I may have to just re-record this whole thing and post it again. Just kidding. Hope you all have a good week. Tomorrow's game, we have no buys coming up. I know I like to usually take a look at bye weeks. But who do we have playing tomorrow? Tomorrow's game is Tampa Bay versus Carolina, which is just, sorry, that was this week. Week 3, Tennessee versus Jacksonville. Just going to be probably nothing really to write home about. And then the Bears have a Monday night game against Washington at Washington. So that'll be a fun game to watch as well. Looking forward to it. Thanks everybody for tuning in. I hope that this was, I don't even know how long this has gone, but I hope I'm getting better at communicating, my thoughts around this, and we'll see where we go in week 3. Best of luck, everybody. Take care.